Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Yvonne here from My Halal Kitchen. As promised, we have our very energetic, as always, guest, Madiha Saeed. Welcome, Dr. Madiha. How are you?
Oh my gosh, I am so honored to be here. I am so incredibly excited.
Long time.
I felt that right before the interview. I'm like, you're my soul sister. You understand my heart. I love you.
You too.
You literally my sister from another mister, right? I love you so much. Thank you for all the work that you're doing.
You're, for those of you who are watching, you've probably seen lots of videos between the two of us, either on your channel or mine, or somehow you introduced me to StreamYard. So, mashallah, this is your gift to me, helping me figure out this whole video streaming thing. And you're so generous with your info as well. And we've become good friends as a result of all of our shenanigans on food and cooking and nutrition and health and everything. So you guys can go back to my YouTube channel and see past videos of Dr. Madiha and I, Holistic Mom MD. It started at my house, right, in Chicago. Remember,
being so much fun.
And it all started with your first book. I have it here because it's on my shelf. I refer to it a lot. And whenever somebody comes over and has an ailment, the Holistic RX, I'm going to put a link to the book here. But Dr. Madiha, you were starting to write this book when we first met, or you'd almost finished it, I think, or something. You were in the process. And then that's how we got to know each other. And we're so, obviously I'm not a doctor and a nutritionist or anything, but the information junkie that I am, reading everything I can about health and wellness. You and I were so much on the same page about lifestyle and cooking, and you were like looking at the food that I would make and say, oh yeah, that's good. That's what we should be eating. And so we were kind of like we merged our minds, right? You with your medical background and me with the food and cooking, and that's work together. And alhamdulillah, we have some projects in the works in the future, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. That's still a mystery, and we will unveil that much later, inshallah. But today we are here because I think you're one of the busiest people that I know. Busy, productive, 4 kids, mashallah, big family, and you still managed to write 2 more books, one of which is coming out, Quran Perspective. That's Quran Prescription. That's coming out later. We'll come back and talk about that because that is something I'm so interested to read. I know you sent me the manuscript, but when it's final and done, we're gonna have you back. But today we are here to talk about your recent book, The Holistic RX for Kids.
Oh.
All my little tabs, and by the way, they're cat tabs.
I know, I love that.
My mom sent me these little Post-it notes, and they're so fun. But I was going through the book. I mean, I don't have children, but I know that everything in here is the stuff that I would use this as my guide for parenting kids in today's world. So, mashallah, your 4 kids, your medical background, your love of this halal and tayyib, pure life. Tell us what prompted this book and why you wrote it.
So, I, like many of all of us, had the same bad habits that have led most of children and adults down the road to chronic health conditions. Mm-hmm. I had a mom that loved to cook, but for her, food was love. And so coming here straight from Pakistan, she just saw, oh, my kids love sugar, so I'm going to give them sugar. Even though she was an amazing cook, right? We had an entire basement, I remember, right? An entire basement full of processed food. Where my mom would coupon shop, and every day we would have.
It's hard.
It's hard. It's so hard. But an entire pantry, literally in our basement with hundreds of cereals, and every day we would eat a different one, and strudels, and we took cans of soda to school every day. So believe me, I've been there and done that. But then I started to lose my hair and had severe digestive issues, and then acne, and then eczema. And again, that was just my new normal, right? That's what I was told.
Yeah.
And it was just one chronic health condition after another. And it didn't really skyrocket until I went to residency. And in residency, I was a new mom, a new wife, a new resident. Me and my husband were both working 80-hour work weeks. And I basically was just continuing on this hamster wheel, trying to just keep my head above water. Until one day that hamster wheel came to an abrupt stop where my husband had this gut inclination. Can you go check up on our 10-month-old in daycare? I just feel like there's something wrong. And I was like, I was going to just shrug it off. But then I'm like, okay, I'll just, listen to him. I walked across the street. The daycare was actually attached to the hospital. It was part of the hospital, which was a huge blessing. But I walked into every mother's worst nightmare. The daycare provider was rocking back and forth, back and forth. The lights were dim. And the eerie silence was broken by my child's in the back. When I went back there, I saw that my firstborn, my gift from Allah, my gift from God, was literally strapped down in a receiving blanket, arms and legs strapped down. Pacifier was in his mouth. His Winnie the Pooh blanket was wrapped so tightly around his head that eyes were bloodshot. His face was swollen. I immediately picked him up and I ran out. And on that day, I made a solemn promise. Yes. So she actually admitted it to it later on. But I made the solemn promise that, Ya Allah, God, I thank you so much for saving my child. I promise I'm going to take care of these kids best that I know how. But then I'm like, hey, take a step back. I'm a family physician. I'm dealing with severe, lots of autoimmune conditions, acne, eczema. In order to just go to the bathroom, I had to stick a steroid suppository there. Literally, I was a mess. I even had shingles in residency. So I'm like, well, how am I supposed to take care of this child? And I, as a family physician, his father, who is a family physician, we can't help me put myself back together. So what's going on here? There's a piece of the puzzle.
Everything was
exactly, there's a disconnect where I don't even know how to take care of myself. How am I supposed to take care of these children?
And then, I didn't have the time, right, to deal with that. You didn't have the time.
I didn't have time to even figure that out. But, I started asking, that's when I started to ask these questions. Why am I getting sick in the first place? I continued, and what can I do to stop this from getting worse? And so I went on that hamster wheel again, just trying to find answers. And everybody really told me that, you know what, you're just going to let this disease take its course and eventually it'll kill you. But I'm like, no. Or you can take these medications that can, the side effect is death. And I'm like, that's what I'm trying to prevent, right? This is craziness. This doesn't make any sense. I was never really provided with any hope. And that's when the disconnect also came, because Allah has given us so much hope. And here the medical system wasn't giving me so much hope, despite being a family physician. And so I went on this search, and then that's when I started writing the first book, The Holistic RX, Your Guide to Healing Chronic Inflammation and Disease.
I used it for lots of references. It's not one of those books where you can just read in one sitting. It's like you think about things that are going wrong that you have or somebody else knows, and you just keep referring to it.
So, and that's what I had to put that book together, because I'm like, as a family physician, if I'm having a hard time navigating what I'm supposed to do to put my body back into balance, everybody else must be too.
Sure.
And I know that's when me and you connected. Our love on food, and there's not that many, Muslim authors out there. Specifically, their books are, traditionally published. So that's why I thank you so much for that guidance. And as I continue to read and learn and educate, that's when I started Holistic Mom MD, because as I was learning these things, I started implementing this in my children. And so at this time, remember, I made the solemn promise to Allah, God, that I would take care of these kids the best that I know how. So naturally, I started to study parenting. So I've been now studying parenting for the last, 14 years, right? My oldest.
That's very humble of you to say, because a lot of times people are really shy to admit that they don't know what they're doing. It takes a lot of courage to say, you know what, I'm really, if I'm a wife and I don't know how to do this thing. I'm a mom. I don't know how to do this thing. But you faced your issue head on and said, you know what, I need to learn this thing. And that's a very humble position to put yourself in. And now you're sharing that with everyone that you can, the whole world.
Absolutely. And because I recognize that as a family physician, specifically, I was not taught parenting. I wasn't taught nutrition. I wasn't taught really what we needed to know to keep a child's mind, body, soul, their behavior to be the best possible, right? We were studying milestones, yes, and we were studying how to keep them safe, but not really what we needed to know to keep their brains and their bodies functioning optimally. And that's when I started learning about the world of holistic medicine and functional and integrative medicine, combining that with the parenting world. That's when it blew my mind, because when a child is born into the world, we're not given an instruction manual on how to raise constructive human beings that will serve humanity and not destroy it. That's a lot of pressure to put on us.
Well, and also you put on top of that the modern world's pressures of
Yes.
To succeed, and all there's so many things, right? Your family came from another country. You come to the US, the whole point is to have opportunities and give your family opportunities and have this great life. And then you're slapped with all the modern demands of modern life and all of the conveniences that go with that, and all these shortcuts in food and lifestyle that really, after a while, you start to see those shortcuts don't always, things always catch up to you, right?
Absolutely. Things always catch up to us.
Yeah. So,
and that's what it did. And that's why I think right now it's catching up to us. If just look at the statistics.
Yeah.
The statistics are so frightening that, chronic disease has quadrupled in children, amongst children since 1960s. And then in 1994, because in 1994, 1 in every 8 children had a chronic health condition. Now it's 54% of American children have a chronic health condition. And they say that if we continue at the current trajectory, 80% of all children will have a chronic health condition by 2025. And that's before the pandemic. That's before the pandemic. So it's probably crazier now. And it's not just...
Sorry, go ahead.
No. It's not just that the kids are getting sicker, they're getting bigger. Obesity is on the rise. And unfortunately, now this is a crazy statistic. This is the first generation of children to not outlive their parents, as our children today are living sicker and shorter lives.
Yes.
Physically, mentally, 1 in every 6 children have at least one neurodevelopmental disorder like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, specific learning disorders, sensory processing disorders. Suicide, it's an all-time high, along with children. If you have you seen that the documentary, The Social Dilemma, that our girls...
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's such an eye-opener. It's very scary because they're saying that there's been 189% increase in 10 to 14-year-old girls that are cutting themselves and ending up in the hospital since 2011. Isn't that craziness?
What, 10 to 12?
10 to 14-year-olds.
14. Oh my God.
10 to 100, and then suicide in that age group, 151% increase.
Is this since the pandemic?
2011. Since 2011. And I can't even imagine. So yes, the pandemic, things have gotten even worse during the pandemic.
It's a combination of social media. There's, like all of the things people see on social media that, grass is greener on the other side stuff. But there's probably a lot of parents who aren't, two people need to work. So there's probably a lot of absent parents in many regards. But do you see a correlation with nutrition as well?
Absolutely.
Developing these like mental illnesses in not just adults, but youth as well. Do you think, are there studies on that?
Oh my gosh, so much. Because
Really?
The fact that it's all about asking that question, why? So what is going on to our children? Getting to the bottom of this. And unfortunately, right now, our children's brain, what you just said, our children's brains are not working. So why aren't they not working? Why are they really difficult to parent? Why are our children suffering? And it really comes down to our children are living imbalanced lifestyles, right? Yes. When they're living imbalanced lifestyles, and one of the key piece of that imbalanced lifestyle is their food. So unfortunately, but there's 2 main pieces of decision making. Our kids today are just making the wrong decisions. And there's 2 main pieces of decision making. which is called neuroeconomics. And there's the prefrontal neuroeconomics. I know it's like the interdisciplinary field of, that explains human decision making. But there's two main pieces. That's the prefrontal cortex and their amygdala. The prefrontal cortex is the more developed part of the brain that's responsible for rational decision making. It examines the pros and the cons, and it helps the children think of like a thought out decision after looking at the whole piece of the puzzle. While the amygdala is a more reactive part of the brain, and that's your fight and flight, impulsive type of decision making. You need both of these pieces to be working appropriately in order for our children to make rational decisions.
Well, when you say children making decisions, at what age are they supposed to be making rational decisions?
Well, either way, I mean, we know that their children's prefrontal cortex is continuing to develop over time, and they're not born with that. But as we as parents and caregivers and aunts and uncles and grandparents, once every interaction that we have continues to grow cells in the prefrontal cortex, and so can actually help a child develop their brain with every connection we have. So not until you hit your full 20s does a child have a full developed brain. So that's why our children are still developing it. But the thing is, you want to make sure that with the decisions and their lifestyles that they have, so just like we're teaching a kid to brush their teeth after they go to, wake up, or wash their hands after they go to the bathroom, we as parents and caregivers can give our children those skills that they need to optimize the prefrontal cortex development.
The adults need to know the right information
themselves. Exactly. So that's where the diet.
Yeah.
So when a child eats artificial fake food, lack of nutrition, it actually leads to chronic inflammation. It leads to chronic inflammation that we've talked a lot about in our previous videos.
Yeah, that was one of my questions for you.
Yes. So chronic inflammation actually hijacks a children's brains.
So let me just stop you right there. Sorry, let me just stop you right there because one of the first things I read in your book was about inflammation in children. Okay.
Yes.
And I have to say, I think that maybe I'm unusual in this regard, but when I think of inflammation, I think of it in adults. I think of it as something that is part of aging. Okay. That's maybe my misunderstanding, but and all this time after reading about inflammation and knowing what happens when you're inflamed, I really never attributed this to even being possible in kids. But you address that in this. I just want to, if anybody's watching with the book, you can go to page 19. The headline of your book here is "Inflammation hijacks our children's brains and behavior," and that just hit me because you talk about brain aging here as part of children. So sorry, I really just wanted to highlight that first before you go into it, because I think that's a super eye-opening thing for those of us to understand kids and the importance of what you're about to say.
Absolutely. And we have to recognize that, when your child has eczema, right? Very common in kids. What do they give you? An anti-inflammatory. When your kid has a headache, what do they give you? An anti-inflammatory. When your kid has allergies, an anti-inflammatory. So these are common childhood conditions that we know as physicians have chronic inflammation as the root cause. We think that it's just affecting that organ system.
Yes, exactly.
But unfortunately, it's not just that.
Right. That is superficial. It's a skin thing or it's a fever, normal stuff. But you address this as super serious, super important, and something that can be managed.
Absolutely. Well, they did, researchers at Harvard and Columbia, they looked at a group of 4,000 children, and they saw that those children with behavioral problems, maybe increased risk for chronic conditions later on in life. And that includes diabetes and obesity. And just look at the kids right now. I mean, there's a lot of behavioral issues. But when they actually studied their blood, so these researchers they looked at their blood when they had behavioral issues at the age of 8, right? At the age of 10, they checked their blood, and those children actually had 2 levels of proteins that were elevated. And that is your C-reactive protein and your interleukin-6. And that is a pro-inflammatory cytokine that's produced in response to infection or tissue injury. And studies have actually shown that these children are these, even with behavioral issues, have high inflammation in their bodies, and that is then reciprocated to sicker and sicker adults. And so this is where we know that inflammation is hijacking our children's brains, because studies have shown that their inflammation decreases the strength of the connection between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, leading to a child that is unable to use the full brain to make a rational, logical decision. It's us versus you mentality. It's lack of relationships, more anger, more violence, and an overall disruptive child. And these children, yes,
it's almost like they're on fire, right? I mean,
their brains are on fire. Their brains are actually aging. Even specifically when it comes to the food, they've shown that every there's if a child who ate ultra processed food had 10% smaller brains and 7 points lower IQ. Food is probably the single most powerful tool that impacts our children's brains, their bodies, and their behaviors. So just let that sink in for a second. Well, I love the work that you're doing. This is where we really connect.
Working with the Islamic schools years ago in Chicago, and parents are very intent on getting their kids in Ivy League schools and pushing them to that. And I appreciate all of that effort and focus on that. But when you go to look at the lunches, my God, it's a party every day. This is not going to help their brains focus on their academics. So the two things are absolutely crucial. If you want them to succeed, you better get started in that lunchroom kitchen and make sure that it doesn't have all those colorings and dyes and grease and junk processed stuff. I mean, and we tried to put in healthy food, but of course the kids are not used to it. And because trickle down effect, the adults don't believe in it. I'm sorry, I have to say that. Like, it has to come from the top. Okay, kids are
absolutely
not going to buy it if the parents and the adults are not taking.
And this is where we need to educate them, right?
Yeah.
Because we have to recognize that when we put junk food in our children, we're going to get junk behaviors out. We're going to get junk bodies out. We're going to get junk brains out.
Absolutely.
And then when we put these bad fake foods that actually destroys the gut microbiome, it leads to chronic inflammation. It imbalances their hormone. It threatens their children's ability to make rational decisions. It hampers their ability to function properly.
Right.
And so even junk food is actually, impairing our children's ability to think, learn, remember, perform. They actually perform lower on memory tests, and even to control, they're unable to even control these impulsive behaviors, and increases the risk of teenage depression and anxiety. So, and the research is all out there. There's been more and more, there's thousands of research articles how directly connecting the impact of the food that they were putting in their bodies and their brain and their decisions and their health. So we have to start educating the adults, thinking that we're going to keep the kids happy by giving them junk. No, we're actually increasing our own problems, because we're literally we're intoxicating an entire generation.
That makes toxic behavior for toxic relationships, right? It
yes.
kind of starts at home. And what I love about the work you do, and I have been a patient of yours, so I can speak from experience. When you assess a situation, you are looking at the grand picture, the whole thing. You're asking questions about relationships that you have with other people. You're asking my relationship with ourselves. What's your home life like? What kind of environmental pollutants are there in the home? I've always been pretty conscious about, those like plug-in, what do you call it? Plug-in air. I don't even use them, so I don't even know what they're called anymore, but air fresheners, Like I would go into people's houses and I can smell them and I'm like, oh my God, like I can't even be near this thing. And studies have shown like those things mess with the endocrine system. You mentioned that in here. I will get into the home stuff later, but my point is like what you're saying is that there's all this junk and all this toxicity, and now what you're doing here is helping people to just clean up the diet, clean up the lifestyle. So,
absolutely. Clean it up and then actually give, if you just look at the statistics, 90% of Americans, including our children, are deficient in at least one or more nutrient. And that is like B vitamins and magnesium and vitamin D and selenium and vitamin K2 and vitamin E and potassium that are all lost from the modern diet. And if we truly ate real food, we would be getting these key nutrients. So our kids actually, not even that we're depriving them of like, I mean, we're giving them all this junk, but we're depriving them of the key nutrients that their bodies need to function appropriately. Because remember, food contains nutrients that literally regulate millions of biological processes that occur in the body that are necessary for everyday function of your child. Currently, the children are lacking in protein, which then results in a negative cascade of consequences at the brain level that decreases the brain volume, the hippocampal formation. These children actually now have fewer neurons in the brain. It's really scary that it really is impairing their cognitive function. Omega-3s, right?
Where have we gone wrong in society? Because you're saying all this, and I'm thinking about my grandmothers, right? I'm thinking about my grandmothers, probably your grandmothers. They may not have had a college degree, or my grandmother, I don't even think she finished high school. Okay, they understood the basics of good food is good health. Like when you go to Sicily, they give the babies fish broth to acclimate them to eat fish, because they know, first of all, that's the local food in our village, but it's also that they consider it a brain food. That is something that kids need to have to form the brains. Even pregnant women, you have to have this kind of food because it forms the baby's nervous system. Like they don't know the science behind it, I'm sure, but there's a relationship between food and how it shows up in the body, how it shows up in making strong kids and strong mothers and strong men.
So powerful.
Where have we gone wrong we're so educated, we're so sophisticated, we're so modern, but look at our ancestors. They didn't have access to the things we do, but they they knew these things. So where do you think we've gone wrong here?
So I think that, if you just look at the food system in and of itself, we have been brainwashed by this terrible food system who's trying to, get us to eat their processed junk food.
Yeah.
And I think it's really there because now, without recognizing it, our kids, basically the food system knows that if you can get kids young and addicted to these foods young, now it starts to become part of their memories, and you really have created these addicts for the rest of their life, right?
Yeah. Well, they become consumers.
They become the consumers, exactly. And now you've connected it with a memory, right?
Yes.
And you know that like those memories that we have connected with food are the strongest, are the hardest to break.
I am so grateful to have the memories I have with my family over really good food. But to us, it was just normal.
Yes.
And now I see things today, and I'm like, I feel so sorry for kids that may have all this material stuff, but they don't have the food, the bonding with the families.
They have it with artificial junk food, though, right? And that's where the problem is.
As you're a mom, I mean, I don't know how it was for you before you decided to change a lot of things, but I see moms in the grocery stores, and I feel bad for them when the kids are screaming and crying and throwing a fit.
Yeah.
And I feel like, all of the marketing and the stuff that's there just grabbing the attention of the kids. Poor moms can't even think straight because the kids are wanting all this stuff that they know is not good for them, but sometimes it's just easier to give it to them, right? It's easier.
Absolutely. And because remember, this is the food. We think that it's easier, but then later on it becomes harder. And that's where, educating you, the moms, about the importance of real nutrients, whole nutrients, because that's what I get a lot of. They're like, it's just easier to eat this way. But if we can teach the moms that these nutrients regulate every single chemical reaction in your child's body, that studies have shown that eating a rainbow of whole foods packed with color, fiber, nutrients, minerals, good fats, your child will actually be less violent. So guess what? They're going to have less temper tantrums. So think that giving, caving in and giving your child this junk food is going to make your life easier. Actually, it's going to make your life harder. And that's what we need to start to change the dynamic around.
Have we created the perfect storm by having these kids that are, basically they're fed food, but it's lacking nutrition. Then they have the behavioral problems. And then we give them things like Ritalin. So that seems to be the perfect storm, or medication. I'm just saying, I don't know. I don't have that experience, but hearing you talk about that, and then I'm thinking about, where the symptoms are being treated, but not the root problem is being treated. It must be the perfect storm for the child and the parents.
It is. Both. Absolutely. Because if you just, let's talk quickly about the gut microbiome about that, right? How does it connect? So your little child's gut has trillions of bugs, which actually is needed to keep your child healthy.
Right.
And there's, for every one message that is sent from your brain to your gut, there are 9 messages that are going from your gut to your brain. Just think about that. It's craziness. So you need these gut microbiome to be healthy in order for your child to have good brain function. And so an imbalance, when we start feeding it artificial fake food and this junk food, this imbalanced microbiome actually leads to increased immune cells that release these cytokines that are then talking to other immune cells, and these messages that can actually cross the blood-brain barrier and then get activated by the brain's immune system, and the specialized immune system in the brain called the glia cells are activated, and then they fight the invaders, leading to more inflammation. So yes, you're exactly right. It's that ongoing cycle, and these cytokines can even act as neurotransmitters. And when they travel to the brain, they can trigger the body's own protectors, like the microglia, which really outnumber your neurons 3 to 1. But what happens when cytokines are activated, it actually turns on this, they activate the microglia. They turn on this alert inflammatory mode, leading to dysregulation, which can be fine for a short time, but guess what? This leads to further inflammation and more microglial activation. So yes, you can give this child this medication, but the underlying root cause is the chronic inflammation that's in the gut, because we know now, science has also proven that 90% of your serotonin is made in the gut, 50% of your dopamine is made in the gut. So there has been a 400% increase of medication, 400% increase rise in pharmaceutical medications, antipsychiatric medications. But despite that, our children's brains are getting sicker and sicker. Why? Because we haven't dealt with the underlying root cause. And that does start with the gut and the food that their children are putting in their bodies.
Right. And that's where the food world comes in, because we, we're always looking at not just the choice of foods, but, how food is grown, it goes down to the soil. Why is there a nutrition deficiency? Because of that. So parents really have to kind of dig deep. They have to really carve out the time to understand the domino effect that's happening, right? It's almost like working backwards. Like, okay, this is a mess we have over here. We have this stormy health situation. And we go all the way back, and it all starts with the land, how things are grown, and then brought to us. And alhamdulillah, we do have choices here. We do, and a lot of that is in not just the grocery store, but in as a parent, what parents demand, what they buy. I always say, I've said this since day one, your dollars, your choices at the store are what drive the market, and that drives the economy. So if you're demanding organic food that is, it's expensive now, but if the whole country were to get on the bandwagon of get that junk out, get the processed foods, and bring in whole organic foods that are like, let's go back to traditional things, what grows, here we are in California, we can grow things, right? We can grow what's natural to this climate and seasonal. And then the other parts of the country, let's grow. Like, there's so much advocacy work that is starting to be done. I think people are waking up to the fact that it starts with a lot of that. And so parents, the reason I bring that up, it sounds like it's not related, but it is, because parents can get that information as long as they're seeking it. And you've sort of like compiled it here. You compiled it, and I love that you talk about gut health for kids, because again, I think that's something we think of as being only for adults, but it's crucial for kids. And then let's talk about the home part. You talk about, you have a nice section here called Kids Healing Home. It's on page 93, and I love it because you have this little diagram here, but it's so important to address the environment that the kids are in. And it's not just the social environment. This is the physical, tangible, what's in your home. Like, parents can read this today and go through their house tonight and really edit out what's just not healthy. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. Toxins, unfortunately, our children are living in a soup of toxins. They're not meant to tolerate the 85,000 chemicals that they're being exposed to on a daily basis.
Yeah.
The toxins are actually located all around us. And it's in the house, and it can be a little bit overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
Because the fact that you're like, how much can we actually,
get rid of,
right? Because we know, but then now science has proven that, if we can just worry about the stuff that we can control, for example, our house, because if you just think about a typical house, right? Your mattress, your child's mattress is chemicals, right? Their pajamas have like flame retardants, which are, hormone disruptors. And then their bedding, again, and their detergents and their softeners that they've left behind. And then, these are all things that we can control. We have control, and there's so much hope. So, there's two main types. There's xenoestrogens, or hormone disrupting chemicals. And those are like, the xenoestrogens, like phthalates and so many other things, trichloride, fluoride, BPA, right? There's all these terrible, terrible things. VOCs, we talked about, found in those air fresheners and household cleaners, which are all neurotoxic. And we're like putting it on the house. We don't have to put that stuff in the house. There's very natural things that we can do, to like essential oils, or even just having really fragrant plants like the jasmine plant in your house to help freshen the air up. But and then there's tons of heavy metals. So the healing home is all about the things that you can do to try to decrease the amount of toxins that your child is exposed to on a daily basis, because we know that our child's brains are developing, their bodies are developing, everything is developing. And so any of these chemicals can actually disrupt a child's biology. And this is where just swapping out the toxic things for the cleaner things. Just for example, like simple things that you can do, anybody can do. Like I have a snake plant behind me. And these are like, they have done studies where NASA, so like the spider plants or whatever, there's so many different aloes and like aloe vera. Remember that whenever I went to your house, it was like packed with all of these greens.
I love it.
I know. And these are simple things that we can do to detoxify the air.
Yeah. And they're natural. They have lots of natural benefits, even just the aromatherapy. You address aromatherapy for kids. I love that. I think even my cat loves to smell the flowers. It's like it's a natural urge to and it feels good. It feels I don't know the psychology behind it, but surrounding yourself in nature does wonders for the soul, mind, body, soul. And kids are
absolutely
more receptive to that than we are, because we're busy with all kinds of stuff. But they are just, and a lot of times it's at their height, it's at their touching level, as long as they're not poisonous. It's just natural, more natural.
Absolutely. And that nature, just like this plant, actually does heal a child's brain, body, and behavior. And because of the fact that our children are moving away from nature, we're having more of these materialistic things. Just spending time in nature can actually de-stress us. It boosts your immune system. It restores our brain connections. It leads to higher prefrontal cortex activation, improves the overall health, boosts serotonin. So that's how it makes you feel better, because it boosts serotonin, mindfulness. So these are simple things that you can incorporate, and then just swapping out like, the toxic stuff for the like, because I know this is what me and you really, again, we're all on the same page on so many levels, but like over time, filter your waters. In the kitchen, why are we using nonstick pans with tons of PFOAs that are these are forever chemicals that are toxic for your body and can actually have been directly connected with cancer?
I put a filter on my sink. Yeah. I put it under the faucet because I don't really want the pitcher. I put a filter, and I noticed that my cat wasn't drinking water for a while, and then when I filtered it, she drank it.
So even our cats know the difference.
Animals know. They know better than we do. And when I tasted it, I was like, oh my God, the difference. I was buying like the bottled water too. So but I didn't want to buy all that plastic and everything. So there's simple solutions,
Simple solutions.
Yeah.
Because we're not recognizing that the toxins in the water can actually disrupt the gut microbiome and lead to further inflammation. So your cat knew it. I know. Your cat knew it. So all you need to do is to reduce those toxins and even the drugs that are found in the tap wire. Just reverse osmotic filtration, put it on your faucet. Super easy. Anybody can do it.
Yes. So little changes like that. And, you can even get incense instead of toxic chemical plugins. You can get like the natural, go to one of those, I don't know, even the Middle Eastern Mediterranean markets sell it or bahur or oud, right? We have in our traditions, like it's natural.
It's natural. There's so many things that are in our traditions that are just natural.
Yeah. There's definitely a way to clean things up. Now, speaking of cleaning things up, let's talk about attachment styles as it relates to relationships, because
oh my gosh,
this is something I have been studying in the past year or so. It's fascinating stuff. It's about attachment style in relationships where we all have like different ways of relating to other people. Whether you're secure, that's like the ideal, right? Or if you're anxious, or if you're avoidant, and how people react in relationships based on their attachment style. The fascinating part was realizing that is developed for us in childhood. So the type of attachment style we have comes as a result of how we were parented.
Wow, yep.
And you wrote about that, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing that you addressed this here, because if you are an insecure, or like avoidant person or anxious, that's something parents need to know now so that they can develop secure attachments for their children.
Absolutely. Because remember, another important ingredient for our children to develop healthy brains and bodies is love.
Yes.
And so our children need to experience these pathways, so because what happens is that when they experience this love, the secure attachment that we're talking about releases this oxytocin called the love hormone. And that significantly strengthens our immune system. It helps develop empathy for ourselves and others, and strengthens our emotional, connections, and even helps children self-regulate themselves. Empathy is the ability to understand somebody else's emotions. And if you look at the world around us, unfortunately, that is becoming more lost in today's world.
Yes.
Absolutely. So it's this, the secure attachment actually equips the child to regulate their own emotions, give them the confidence that they need. And so these children that actually have these secure attachments, their relationships tend to, grow into their adulthood, and they experience a wide variety of emotions without shutting down and becoming overwhelmed. So just giving your child the love that they need actually is so healing physically, emotionally, spiritually in adults and children. So, I mean, they've done so many studies with these mirror neurons, and, so just by even like having this love and connection lowers the cortisol, increases oxytocin, lowers blood pressure, heart rate, improves digestion, improves your immune system.
I think that's the same for adults.
And then having pets too. Having studies have actually shown that having a pet releases the exact same hormones. So actually pet owners have lived longer lives than those people that don't have pets.
I believe it. One of the reasons I got a cat was because they said like cats actually give off the hormone of oxytocin.
Yes.
And I was so sure. That was the time that we met. I had just gotten her, I think. And I was telling you, I was so stressed at the time, and you found that I was pre-diabetic, and I said, "But my food is good," and you were like, "It's not the food; it was the cortisol going up." And I had low vitamin D and all of that. But you made that relationship, and then I got her, and like I just got happy. It reduced a lot of stress, petting her, playing with her. I mean, people laugh about it, but animals give you a reason to get up and care for them. They have needs, and they love you unconditionally.
They do. Oh my gosh, they're so beautiful.
Yeah.
They're so beautiful.
So there's a lot of what you're saying. It's so important that kids get this imprint when they're so small, they're so young. The first line you have on page 115 is the headline of this, creating a secure attachment. I love it. Is that you said unconditional love builds a better brain and body. And when kids feel unconditional love, that they are seen and they are heard, that's going to be their standard for going on in life. They won't tolerate abusive behavior, or they'll recognize that, hey, that's not good for me.
Well, absolutely. And so this is the difference. Everything in this book that I talked about is called holistic parenting. And it's just like we're teaching our children to brush their teeth and wash their hands after they go to the bathroom. Why can't we teach our children how to be grateful every morning? Focus on the food that they put in their bodies, detoxify, optimize their stress management techniques, just prayer, meditation, mindfulness, the importance of nature, so these are simple things that we can do, because remember, holistic parenting helps to put a child's brain, body back into balance. And it really empowers these children, and educates and empowers them to be more mindful of their emotions, their mind, their bodies, their souls. And they recognize, because you're raising, because mindfulness helps you put multiple different levels of perception all at once. Like your child is able to understand what's going on in their body. So these kids, it's so amazing. These kids actually are able to recognize what their bodies feel like when they're balanced. And as soon as it starts to go off of balance, just like we talked about right now with like their social environment or anything food wise, how they're feeling, if they're not sleeping well, they'll feel it. And so then you as a parent and as caregiver have provided them with the tools that they need to help put their bodies back into balance, and recognize immediately, before things even become a problem, that, oh, wait, this is not serving me. It's hurting me. So, and then the child is able to make those decisions themselves. It's really powerful.
So you're teaching them mindfulness in that instance to do that, because they have to really focus and pay attention to how they're feeling, and giving them that permission to do that, almost like that's a good thing. And it teaches them independence as well. And those are all tools we need as adults. And I know many adults who cannot do that still, because they weren't given the tools. It's almost something we have to like unlearn all of this stuff that we were taught, and kind of get back to that as adults. But if you can give your kids these gifts now, then they are going to be the most empowered.
I'll just give you like an example. So it's so my 7-year-old, when he was 7, like he actually had, like, he woke up feeling a little agitated and irritable. And he comes and eats a bowl of sauerkraut, and I'm like, oh, why are you eating sauerkraut for breakfast? And he's like, oh, Mama, I woke up this morning feeling a little agitated, and I think it was because of the organic sugar that we had at Nana's house yesterday. And I think so, because I wanted to keep my gut bugs happy. So I'm eating the sauerkraut, even though it's not the ideal breakfast, but he's eating the sauerkraut to help his gut bacteria, so then the gut bacteria can help his brain. Can you imagine if even adults did that? As soon as their bodies start to get off balance, we use these tools that they need to optimize their health, right?
Right.
So it is so powerful.
So instead of having mashallah, assalamu alaikum.
So we're able to learn these tools. So as soon as he starts to feel his body off balance.
Is he the one that did that?
Yes, well he does that too, right? When you start feeling your body off balance, right?
Yeah.
You have tools that you need to put yourself back into balance. He's the one that, like, for example, If he didn't eat something, he's like, Mama, I need this. Or he'll immediately recognize that, oh, I'm more stressed today, so I need to do more prayer. I need to go to sleep early today because I was a little irritable, right? So giving them some example. He's like, not right now. But the thing is, like, for example, when you were stressed, did you recognize when you were stressed?
Yeah.
And you were irritable?
Yeah.
And
so what were you stressed about? Like, was it because of school or like what was it?
It was because of my brother.
Oh, your brother.
So he was able to recognize it. Well, then I was like, okay, but is that a normal reaction, right? So he saw that. He saw the, is that a normal reaction? So then he went back and he said, he connected it to that the reason why you were feeling agitated with simple things was because of
I had like a lot of sugar. Yes.
the day before.
That day.
So he like directly connected it on his own.
I don't know adults who do that. I don't know.
Yes, right?
Together and say, you know what? Yesterday I had all that chocolate, and this morning I've got a headache from it or something. You know, we
absolutely. No, but then like how you're able to then create these decisions. You know, you're able to change your lifestyle to help suit you, and then to understand that, and to be more mindful.
Mechanisms and that self-regulation. It's a self-soothing in a way, but in a healthy way, right? Self-soothe things that are very questionable.
But Yvonne, it gives the children they're now in control of their behaviors. It's not society in control of their behaviors. It's them in control of how they feel and how they can then actually, use these tools to help them feel better and excel in life. Yeah, it's really a lot of fun.
That's something that you'll never get taught in school. Only mama can teach that. Oh, but it's true. It's true. These are the things that, as adults, we need to remind ourselves how to do. We need to, they tell people to journal and this and that, about your eating habits or whatever to connect, because we don't have the mindfulness as part of our like daily lifestyle practice. Absolutely. To think about those things. We have to kind of actually write it all down. So do you want to bring the kids in, or should we continue talking about some other stuff?
So either way, if you had any other questions for him.
So we have a question. Maybe you can help. So Hannah is saying lockdown has really affected kids socially. What do you recommend to get them out of their shell? Any ideas?
Do you have any ideas how to get kids out of their shell?
Their shell?
Yeah, their shell. So what we want to do is we try to get them like just have scheduled like hiking trips, right? To somehow like get them out, because a lot of times what happens is they want to just stay stuck in the house, right? A lot of kids want to stay stuck in the house.
Yes.
And so there's so many things that we can do. Like, for example, we try to go on a hike regularly, right?
Oh, that's good.
And things that we can try to do. Again, these are simple things we can incorporate into the children's daily routine.
Yeah. So what would be one of your favorite outdoor activities do you like to do with your brothers?
Going on the hikes is fun because then we play games, and then going at the park is also really fun. Okay. And then playing outside in the backyard, we're playing basketball in the backyard for like 6 hours.
Oh, mom lets you do it that long?
They just loved it.
Well, that's how we were as kids. We were out like we went back inside. We were like out.
They didn't want to come inside. They just had so much fun, and so I think we as parents tried to say, "Okay, just sit on this electronic, which has its own problems, right?" And so we as parents think, "Okay, this will be easier," but it's actually not easier. Get the kids out, have them have fun, and you don't have to go. Just go out in your backyard in the grass, ground, right? Without your shoes, grounding is so important.
Yeah. And I know it's hard because with the pandemic, we haven't been social. I think I have experienced depression because of the pandemic, because I miss people. We can see each other through video, but I miss the interaction. I miss hugging my friends. I miss seeing my family. Yes. You don't realize what that does to our mental health until you don't have it. So Henna is saying that her daughter, now that they're out of lockdown, runs from people and hides. So there must be some kind of little bit of a phobia there.
Phobia. And that's why slowly start to get that, introduce them back into that lifestyle slowly but surely. Because remember, it's the negativity. Unfortunately, our children are been raised in a world of negativity. And it's the fear mentality. And so what we will need to do is we need to slowly add the gratitude back in. So that's, for us, that's a big piece of the puzzle, is every morning we say,
thank you, Allah.
Yeah, we say the grateful and thankful song. And so that's, if we can start to incorporate those, the positivity and the gratitude back in, and that will also shift our subconscious from instead of thinking negative and being fearful all the time to being positive.
Well, speaking of reintroducing things, and one point we kind of skipped over, that was my fault, is that when parents are eliminating foods from a kid's diet, their child's diet, to kind of figure out what's maybe irritating their gut or causing any inflammation or issues, how do you suggest that reintroduction process of foods to happen? What should they do?
So what we try to do is and for a child who has chronic health condition, I remove like all grains, all dairy, all sugar, all processed foods, help them lower the chronic inflammation. And then we can slowly add foods back in. And especially the ones that they miss, but never junk food. So they're like, we can add back no artificial food ever, because that's not tayyib, that's khabith, which should not be involved. We should just ban that from our lives forever. But specifically, like, add things in that the child misses, like one food at a time, and specifically like every 3 days is what they recommend, to see if they have any specific reaction. And it could be like if there's a certain like nut that your child was trying to avoid, and then you can add it back in. But obviously, if they've had like an anaphylactic reaction, that's a different story. But if it was just like a sinus issue, add it back in and see how they tolerate that in 3 days, and then just go one food at a time.
So when it comes to sugar, do you give the kids honey?
Do I give you honey?
Yes, definitely.
So the kids never feel, it was really funny. We had somebody come over and they're like, are you guys deprived? Like, don't you feel sad? Right? Somebody came and asked them, they're like, don't you feel sad that you're not eating sugar like all the other kids? And Zan was like, why? We're not missing anything. Because I didn't recognize, because what I try to do is I never try to deprive the kids. So they're always eating, like, they're still getting their treats, but they're healthier options of treats.
Yeah, I remember when you
still cakes and cookies and things like that. So then the kids don't feel deprived.
Yeah,
you feel deprived?
No.
You had all kinds of food for them when you came over, like olives, and I was surprised to see your kids eating olives, because the only time I've ever seen kids eating olives is like in Italy or Turkey or something. I've never seen kids eeating olives here.
Yeah,
and your
kids love olives.
Wow.
And seaweed.
Yes, I love seaweed.
Seaweed.
Oh,
we can be very close friends then, because
so there's lots of great benefit. In the last couple of minutes, I know that I just wanted to give this advice to moms and to caregivers and aunts and uncles, that we feel like we may be depriving our children by giving them health foods, but you can give the children the same kind of foods, but with healthier ingredients.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Zan, can you pick that? So, like, for today for dinner, the kids are going to be having, let me just show you guys. Pizza, right? The kids are having pizza. But so the thing is, but you can have like healthier ingredients. So we made the base with an almond flour crust. We added organic pizza. You can make your own pizza sauce, which I know you have an amazing recipe for in your books.
I have to.
Yeah, I have. So, and then like the pizza, like the sauces, like tomato sauce, so you can put that on. And then we have, like, I put mushrooms on there. You could put different vegetables. I even actually add broccoli sprouts, which has 100 times more sulforaphane than a normal broccoli, which sulforaphane activates something called glutathione, and that's a super antioxidant of the liver. Yes. And so each one of these ingredients that I put on the kids' pizza actually has a purpose. And I'll add, actually, I have a couple of kids here that are sensitive to dairy, and so am I. So I use organic cashew cheese on top. Right. And then so that's equally delicious. And kids feel like they're having their delicious treat, but with super clean ingredients. And you can do the same with pastas and other like breads. You can do the same thing with cakes, which I do with almond flour cake. So the kids never feel deprived.
Yeah, I think that it's important to not only look at what you're buying, but when you pick up a package, like I'm really funny about, you know me, I'm very funny about my pasta. It has to be
absolutely.
But I look at origin too, because I know in certain, like I get things that are from Italy because of the non-GMO. They're so like intense about it and protective of it. So I think we have to do our homework. We have to do our research. But I think for parents that your book is, you've done a lot of the homework and research. I think that they can just get your book and use it as a, like, put it in your purse. And when you go shopping, read what you, because you even have recipes in here as well. You have lots of suggestions. But I would say that until you really get it in your head and wrap it around your brain that these are the changes you need to make, you got to keep this book with you when you go to the store, when you go shopping, when you're talking to your doctor, things like that, because it seems to me that it's this, it's the great summary of everything you need to know to clean up the mess that
absolutely. And what I've done, absolutely, and what I've done is actually the kids also helped me write 2 children's books, and this is just to get your kids involved, right? And we have an Adam's Healing Adventure series that talks all about the toxins and stuff. And then also the rainbow foods, the importance of rainbow foods. So like you can get I think what we need to start doing, Yvonne, is we need to start giving kids enough credit. And I think that's what we don't do as parents, is that we're not having our kids are learning really complicated things in school, but they're not learning anything about food. Why not? Why aren't they learning about food? If they can learn all these really complicated things, why can't they learn what happens when they take a bite of food and what happens to their bodies? And what happens to the soil and what happens to all these things? So I think that we need to start to create educated children. The kids actually have their own podcast called the Holistic Kid Show Podcast, which we need to get you on. And so that we're just trying to educate kids. Right? I think it's really difficult.
Kids are so resilient. And this was my sort of mission in working with Islamic schools or any school that's private, because you have more leeway as a private school to do what you want with your curriculum. And I was really pushing that, we grow gardens and we clean up the cafeteria and we bridge the gap between those two places, because kids can learn biology in the garden. They can learn math. They can learn, plant biology. There's so many things that they can learn there. Business, entrepreneurship. If you talk about, what do you do with the yield? I mean, there's just so much. But then that will encourage them to then want to eat the food that they've seen grow from seed.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I was just having this conversation with the kids today as I was picking them up from school. And because they're like, oh, today the kids were eating all this junk. And I'm like, do you want to eat that food? They're like, Mom, that's not food. That's chemicals. So when you teach a child what this food actually is, like these are just food-like substances. They did not grow from a tree. Right. They did not grow from these things did not, they were made in a lab. So when you teach a child that these are the foods that actually came from a seed and these are the foods that actually came from a lab, the foods don't even look appetizing to the kids anymore, because it's just like a bunch of chemicals that they put together in a lab. So that food doesn't even look appetizing if we start to educate them about where the food came from.
I know adults that get really overwhelmed with the information, because if anybody invites me to a dinner party, the conversation starts to be about food, but then I'm like, yeah, but there's so much more than just organic. I mean, there's non-GMO, there's this, there's that, don't get me started unless you really want to know. But it's empowering to know the domino effect of things. And the kids, like you said, I don't think we give them enough credit. They're like sponges.
They are sponges.
And they're inquisitive, they're curious, they want to know. So why do we have to dumb it down for them? No, we don't.
No, we don't have to dumb. Exactly.
Well, if they're asking, it's because they're curious, they want to know. And I think we should really give them whatever they can't handle, they're not ready for, they'll ask next year or the year after, right?
Absolutely.
They'll read, they'll watch. I mean, for all the intents and purposes, internet can be an amazing resource. And these kids that do know how to work their iPad and whatever, let them, if it brings them to a documentary or something cool about how things grow or planet Earth, there's just so much, there's choices. And alhamdulillah, where we stand, you and I, geographically, there's no excuse, because
there's no excuse whatsoever. You can even get this kind of food at Aldi and Walmart, but this is where we need to now start to create that change and start educating mothers and children and masjids, because again, it's so scary. I can find organic at Aldi and Walmart, and I can even find it at other religious stores, but I can never find anything in Muslim stores. And that's how you know that there's such a disconnect. We have to get the Muslim also on board with this, to start educating our masjids, get this junk out of the masjids.
Well, whenever you put
profit education,
whenever you put profit before people, you will have a problem.
Yes.
Businesses need to make their money. I understand that, but we have a code of ethics as Muslims, which I think any religious people do, or non-religious people do too. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I think most people live by a code of ethics of their own. And I think when you know that you're selling a food that harms people, that's got to weigh on your consciousness, but give credit if people don't know. Okay, then now you do. Now we're telling you, the world is talking about this stuff.
It's everybody's exactly. This is now like,
yeah. I mean, when I was starting this 13 and a half years ago, I was kind of on an island by myself, with a few people who were talking about this stuff. And now it's so ridiculously easy to find out the information that I don't think there's any excuses anymore. And certainly I do hold our community responsible when we have our iftars and we have our, Eid gatherings and stuff. We need to remind each other that the body is an amana on us.
Yes, absolutely. Right? Especially during this month, we need to do that.
Yeah, it's not our own. We're going to be asked about how we treated this the
blessings. That's like one of the first questions we're going to be asked. How did you take care of your blessings?
Yeah. So
our children, our planet, our bodies are all blessings, and our pets.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All blessings. And I give her the most holistic food I can. Her food is Italian, actually. It's so cute. I love it. She goes crazy for it. But seriously, you even hear things happening to pet food. And I think, come on, how can a person feel like if something happens to their animal, if you just, poured the food in? You got to know what's going on with the food, every food chain, human, children, adult children, pets, everything. It all affects us. It's all part of, the food supply and chain, and the health of it all is, we think it might not touch us because we eat halal. It will touch us eventually. Just because, everything is affected, right? So let's bring the kids down and ask them I want to talk to them about their favorite recipes that they like to enjoy from you. And maybe they do some stuff on their own.
Yes, let me actually call them up.
This stuff forever and ever. You got me all fired up today.
I know, right? But let me go call them really quick.
Okay.
They disappeared on me for a second. Give me one second.
So if those of you who are watching, if you can, please share this broadcast with your network. Just the share button right here on Facebook. And if you're watching the replay, you can just go to the share button and copy the link and share this with your friends, family, and network. And if you're watching from YouTube, please make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit the notification button so that you get notified whenever a new video pops up, which I try to do quite often these days, doing lots of interviews, more than cooking videos, but we'll get to those too. I hope everybody's enjoying their Ramadan so far. And since I have your attention, don't forget my Ramadan campaign with UNHCR. We're trying to raise $100,000 or more for Yemen. So please take a look at my channel, my Instagram, my Facebook, and YouTube for information on that. Welcome. Let me see. How many? Just one?
No. No, can I have the other one? So you're here.
Okay. Can you guys all here? Can you all come out? Can you introduce yourselves to everybody one by one?
I'm Zane.
Zane.
How old are you?
11.
11.
Okay.
Okay. Qasim?
6.
Oh, you're a big boy. Last time I saw you, you were tiny.
Yes, he was still in like a diaper. I think he's just born.
Yeah. Which one of you was playing with the cat? Imran?
Imad.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Where's number 4?
So he's doing Quran.
No, he's not.
Oh, okay. He's like, okay.
Okay, Imad, tell us what's your favorite dish that do you make it, or is it something your mom makes? What do you like to eat?
I like eating the cookies that Mama makes with tiger flour, I think.
With what kind of flour?
Tiger, or I used to like tiger flour, but now I like
flour.
Yeah, and now Mama makes cassava flour cookies.
Cassava flour. Okay. Where's the recipe?
This is Abdullah.
Hello.
Assalamualaikum. Wow, he's getting so big.
I know.
Where did the time go? Oh my God.
I know, mashallah.
Okay, so who wants to tell us their favorite recipe?
I can.
Okay.
My favorite recipe is the brownies. I just really like brownies.
Sweet. What does your mom make? Do you help her make them?
Yes.
You do help her. I think you're the one who likes to cook the most out of all of you guys. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's like the mix.
So what? How are the
How
brownies?
I like to do.
What kind of flour? What kind of
Flip pancakes. Yeah, I like to flip.
He likes to flip pancakes.
Okay, so what kind of? Tell me about what's in the brownies and pancakes.
So the brownies have almond flour and cocoa powder, and then
what do we use as sweetener?
Yeah. Oh, our sweetener is honey.
Okay, and where's the recipe? Can we find it on your website?
It's actually in the book also, and it's in the website.
Okay.
Is it in the cookbook?
And what do we use in the pancakes?
Use cassava flour.
And what else? What do you use for syrup?
Eggs.
You use honey for
And
syrup?
honey.
And baking soda and sea salt.
I like the omelet.
Yeah, he
Instead
loves
of using like frosting and everything, we change it up by using honey.
Okay. Do you have any tips for kids that can help them stop eating junk food?
Yes.
Then Mom, Dad. Eat the rainbow foods.
It will start hurting your body a lot.
Eat the rainbow foods instead of eating the junk foods, which is the same yummy as the other one.
Tell us what the rainbow
carrots.
foods are. For the kids that don't know, can you tell them what rainbow foods are?
Rainbow foods are like, instead of it, like you have
Red.
Cheetos and everything. No, it's not like that.
Okay,
It's
so
like-
rainbow foods.
Like peppers, and then you go to carrots, then
orange.
So the
orange,
color, you're eating by color.
yellow.
Yeah,
green.
like lemons, bananas, mangoes.
But it all has to be healthy.
So
Yeah,
what
they're
do
all
you do at
good.
school? What do you do if someone offers you some junk food at school? Like, what do you say to them? Because you don't.
thank you.
You just say no, thank you. Oh, you're so sweet and nice and polite. Well, what about you guys? What do you say? Do you say no, thank you?
I say I don't want to get sick.
And what do the kids respond?
They're like, okay, more for me. And then
I just eat it.
All right. Any other tips
Don't a lot of people ask you why you don't eat it?
Yes, they do.
No.
But now, since
No,
I've
they
been
don't.
in the school for a long time,
6
most
years,
of
5
them
years,
know-
5 years.
5 years.
No, 6 years, 6 years.
I've been in here for 6 years. I've been in the school for 6 years, so people know my lifestyle.
I've
and
been
my
in the
diet.
school like
But
What
the
happens
new
if
kids,
somebody brings a dessert?
actually just 1 year.
What happens if somebody brings cake or like for a birthday or what do you do? Is it awkward or do you eat a little? Like, how do you get around all that?
No, I used to do that
usually
in
we tell our mama before doing it, and mama
Usually
gives
no.
us this substitute.
Oh, she
So
gives you
if it's popcorn, we get our
popcorn.
healthy popcorn. The
Oh.
popcorn that they give us is so yellow.
Skittles.
Skittles.
No.
no Skittles. You eat Skittles? Oh,
No.
He just died on the floor. He's like, no.
No, it's
What's your substitute for Skittles? What's your substitute?
there are these candies called giggles.
Unreals and giggles.
Unreals.
Where can they get them? Whole Foods?
You can get them.
Target, Whole Foods,
See.
What's that called?
Fruitful Yield.
Yes.
So lots of like your health food stores all have alternatives. So whatever your kid, like, let's say they're passing out candy at school, so they usually will have an alternative available.
So they usually tell you ahead of time what's coming, and then you can prep.
Yeah.
So then the kids don't
They
feel.
keep me updated.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So mashallah, you are showing people how to do this and how to get the kids to sort of hold their own in front of their friends at school and not feel bad about it, not feel weird about it. It's like they're so cool. The kids are so cool about it.
Does it make you feel bad about it?
They're
No.
good.
They're the ones
Don't
getting sick.
feel
I
weird
feel-
about
I
stuff like
feel-
Yeah, he said, he goes, they're the ones that are getting sick. Why would I feel bad about it? So
Well,
that's the mentality that we need to start educating our children and empowering it. Because I think the conversation around food is basically health food is just boring and it's not fun.
Yeah.
So when you go to like restaurant, so we actually take food with us anytime we go to restaurants to like parties. I'll always bring food. I'll take it when we go on like vacations.
Yeah.
We have fun food, but it's just real food.
Yeah, I people used
Because
to
real food is fun food. The fake food is not fun
feel
food.
better. I know with traveling it's very hard, and people used to make fun of me all the time for taking food with me in my bag, purse, suitcase, whatever, and I would say, well, I just don't want to slip and eat something that isn't going to make me feel good, and I want to make sure I have certain things that I mean, just your body by this point. But I think when you've experienced sickness and then you feel better, it's a little bit of trauma to go. You don't want to go back into that trauma of feeling sick again.
Absolutely. And even when we're on vacation, do you guys feel like you're being deprived?
No way.
Yeah, because then the kids realize that this real food makes them feel amazing.
Yeah.
And so they don't want tummy aches. They don't want things like that. So
yeah.
Mama.
Yeah.
Also, when you went to Makkah, they had all those they had all the McDonald's, and then Mama took only healthy foods.
Yeah. So you just take healthy foods.
When you told me.
Yeah, you just take healthy foods everywhere because we eat 100% non-GMO and as much as organic as possible. So, but it's 100% non-GMO is a must in our house. And so we just came back from Disney and Universal Studios, a month ago, and where we took our food with us and we took healthy, and it was still fun, right?
Yeah.
So it's doable. You just have to take that first step in educating you and your family, and then just being prepared.
I think when we were kids and we go to amusement parks, we always took the big cooler.
Yes, I thought that was like part of the fun. Otherwise, you have to stand in those lines that take forever.
And also think about it, when you get those foods, it's almost like it's not as satisfying, and it's not like my mom used to bring the tablecloth and we would get, the cooler would be there, would have all the watermelons and fruits and meats and whatever. And everybody sat down, like had a real meal together as a family.
Yeah,
and
that was a lot of fun. Remember when we all we took our own food and we just had like a little picnic at the park? It was so much fun. And by the way, we went for 13 people. So so if anybody can do it, it's really doable, and it actually made it more enjoyable.
With 4 kids and a career and busy family life, I think if you can do it and write book after book after book, mashallah, I think anybody can incorporate these things that you're suggesting. So I want to thank you so much for the time that you've given to us today, and the gift that you've given us in sharing your knowledge and wisdom and passion for what you do with the world. It's what we all need, and what these little munchkins need as well. So
because they're our future. So thank you. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you for being here. Is there anything else you want to say before we go?
Eat healthy.
All right. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your Ramadan, and inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Bye-bye.
Walaikum assalam.